So by this time you have probably experienced vectors, whether it's vectors in physics, vectors in geometry. By this point in time you have experienced vectors at least once. We're going to go over them again today, and I'm going to go over what your two projects are for this chapter. So a vector basically is a directed line segment, array if you will. It has both a magnitude and a direction. In standard form, this direction is from the positive x-axis. It is an angle. Now, we typically represent a vector with an arrow, a ray if you will. This point right here is known as the head of the vector. And back here we have what's known as the tail of the vector. In the book, you will see the name of the vector, and that will be bolded. Obviously, bolding in handwriting is very difficult, so we put an arrow over the top of it. So if I have two vectors, vector A and vector B, how I could add those vectors to get vector A plus B is actually kind of fun. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this vector and I am going to move it so that its tail is on the head of vector A. In order to do vector addition, our vectors must be lined up head to tail. So what am I going to do after that? Well, I'm going to line up from the tail of vector A to the head of vector B, and I am going to draw my resultant vector. This is vector A plus B. To find the magnitude, typically we would measure that to some extent, and the angle we're looking at is from the positive x-axis, so it's this angle right here. So, for your first project, you have a graphical addition of vectors worksheet. So, notice that this says addition right here. The first thing you're going to want to do is you are going to mark out right here this stuff in parentheses, because all that does is confuse people. That is not clearly explained, so we're going to mark that out. Alright, so what we have going on, we have a series of vectors. You are adding them, so you need to make sure that they are head to tail. So I'm going to look at this one right down here, and I'm going to work one example for you. So, is this vector head to tail? No. So that means that I need to draw a new vector A. No, I'm drawing a new vector A. That has the same length. Let's get the line tool out. It needs to have the same length as vector A, and it needs to be in the same direction. So I'm going to start here, I'm going to come down, I'm going to stop. Now why am I doing this? Because then I can come in here and I can copy it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this vector. I'm not doing anything else, so I need to draw a representation of vector A at the head of vector B. I could also draw a representation of vector B at the head of vector A. I've got to pick one. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and go to from the tail of vector B to the head of vector A, and that is going to give me the resultant vector. Oh, that didn't work. Let's get a bright color. right here, which gives me the representation B plus A. So I would need to measure that length with my ruler, and I'm going to need to measure the angle to the positive x-axis with my protractor. Okay, so this is a 50-point project assignment. You must show the vector resultant with the arrow showing its direction. You must show the length with centimeters. This is just an example. You would have to actually measure it in centimeters. And you need to have the direction, which is an angle, in standard form from the positive x-axis. So now we've done vector addition. If we look at vector subtraction, if I take those same initial vectors, A and B, I initially had them added. If I take vector A, and instead of adding vector B, I subtract vector B. So I have vector B here. In order to subtract vector B, what I have to do is I have to make it negative B. I have to flip it 180. The easiest way to do that is to literally change where the head is and put a negative sign there. At that point, we would then add vector negative B to vector A to get A minus B. So to get vector A minus vector B, what we're going to do is we are going to move vector negative B that we have. We're going to move vector negative B so that vector negative B is on the head of vector A. Or we can move vector negative B so that its head is here at the tail. So vectors negative B and vector A become head to tail. Okay, at this point, once we have them lined up head to tail, then we're just going to connect the dots from the tail of vector negative B to the head of vector A. So this is going to be vector A minus B. Next project is also a 50-point project. This is the graphical subtraction. Again, we are going to mark this out. So some things you'll want to note. You will want to note that this is B minus A, so our A is negative. This is subtraction. You'll want to hit that with a highlighter so you've got that memorized. So what I've got to do is I've got to go through here and I've got to make A negative A. So in order to do that, I'm going to flip the direction of the vector and I'm going to mark that down as negative A. Alright, since these are head to tail, we will just have to get our line tool down here. And we are going to go from the tail of vector negative A, from the tail of vector negative A, which is down here, we're going to go all the way up. From the tail of vector negative A all the way up to that is not showing. We're going to go from the tail of vector negative A all the way up. So we're going to go from the tail of vector A to the head of vector B. Our vector is going to be pointed in this direction. It's where you start to where you end. So if you think about it, we started here, went here, went here. This is our angle in standard form. So again, just like last time, you need the magnitude in centimeters, the direction in standard form, the vector with its head pointing in the correct direction. That's how you're going to get your points for this assignment.